Away, let's get you a conversation from none other than the Digital India Summit that ET Now held yesterday. In fact, this is an exclusive conversation that my colleague Parisha Tyagi had with Deep Kalra of MakeMyTrip. In fact, he says the way the angel tax notices were given were very unfortunate and had caused a lot of damage to the startups. That's a word coming in from the founder of MakeMyTrip. In fact, he was in an exclusive conversation with ET Now. He also said that even today, Indian companies are disadvantaged compared to their foreign counterparts since they do not have to comply with any sort of taxation herein.
I guess the reason is demand and supply. So I don't think the demand has changed. In fact, February traditionally is the lowest demand month for all travel. December is among the highest, October is very high. Jan continues with some holiday travel, but Feb is typically the lowest. But as in March you're back with a lot of travel demand. Soon you'll have a long holy weekend. But the supply has been the problem. Both these airlines have cancelled flights for different reasons. I think in the case of Jet, it's clearly financial situation, and we are hoping it'll get sorted out. But as of now, I think now they have only about 53 flights out of Delhi. So it's really come down a lot. Besides Bombay is their hub, of course, but Delhi is shrunk. If you look at Indigo, it's been because of, which I was surprised to learn, but largely I think a pilot shortage or a crew shortage. But they were growing really fast. They are the market leaders. So I'm pretty sure we've been talking to them. I think they'll be back. But if there's a demand-supply crunch, clearly what's going to result is higher fares.
So supply is the main challenge you're saying, and not the demand, despite high prices.
Not at all.
And so have any...
No, the supply-demand causes the higher prices. At the higher price, some people will obviously then either postpone their travel, put it off, or go by train. So I think some kind of travel because the price goes up. But that's the chain of events.
It hasn't hurt your business in any way?
I think thankfully, given our situation as the market leader, I think it'll be fair to say that we continue to thankfully do quite well, maintain that position, and our numbers are still very healthy.
And so have you observed people getting wary of air travel, especially after the Ethiopian airline plane crash, and there have been concerns about whether Boeing 737 MAX are safe for travel at all, and there have been demand for grounding the aircraft. So have you sensed any sort of concern around that recently?
See, any plane accident always puts some concern, and I think what has happened in this case is two different planes from two different airlines, but the identical equipment, the 737 MAXs, have had a very similar kind of fatal accident. So it's very sad what's happened. And the fact that some countries have reacted instantly and have grounded all such planes has definitely put some panic in customers' minds. So I think we're hoping DGCA is normally, very, very careful. So they've already issued guidelines that today only pilots with more than 1,000 hours of flying experience can fly these planes. I believe Boeing has also issued a directive. So I think there's a retraining which is required. If this particular nose-down maneuver kicks in, then how you can actually override the system. As you know, most planes today are fly-by-wire by the computer, but how you can override it. The trouble is if it kicks in very early and then you have to immediately get out of it, you don't have much elevation. So the second accident happened at, I think at a pretty low height. It wasn't at cruising. At cruising altitude, you have time to get out of it. So I think they need experience in the training to get out of it, to override, disengage the system and take over manual control. So I'm sure they'll take it very seriously, and we can only hope that there's no more accident like this anywhere in the world. It's just really sad when it happens.
So I would want to shift from airlines a bit, and would want to know your views about dual voting rights, wherein a founding member of a company holds a higher percentage of shares in a company than others. So yes, so what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter, given the new economy, especially if you're in B2C business. We know that marketing budgets are very large, so a lot of money has been taken in at different stages of the company in the life cycle. So before you know it, most of the time founders are reduced to non-majority shareholding. If you're in a non-majority shareholding, you don't want to be in a situation where some very critical and vital decisions for the company can be taken by investors, or you're not part of that. And I think some of the best companies in the world, like even if you look at a Google or a Facebook, the entrepreneurs have remained in charge of taking the key decisions despite their minority holding through differential voting rights. So therefore, I do think this can really help the new economy if founders are allowed differential voting rights. And right from the beginning, investors have to understand that on key matters, not only veto, but there'll be differential voting rights for founders.
And so we also saw you speaking about how it's easier for foreign companies to invest in India than domestic investors. The government recently came out with the draft e-commerce policy. I would want to know you if you've gone through the policy. What's your take about the policy? Do you think the policy does enough to address concerns in the e-commerce sector and provide a level playing field?
Your policy is quite detailed, but I think there are clearly some areas where we've already kind of put together our thoughts on them. I think around data security, I think we need more detailing to understand what is the customer data that needs to be held personally, but what is the aggregated cohort data that you can use without one individual's data. So it's just that there could be 100 people behaving in the same manner, or 1,000 people. Can you use that, and can you give them some offers which are without knowing their identity? So I think there are some concerns there which we've already put forward to the government. There's a stakeholder meeting where we have put these forward. I think also around taxation, we do believe that it's still easier for a foreign company to do business in India in the digital space than an Indian company, and we definitely think that they can be improved.
But the foreign companies have also been facing a tough time here in India, especially after the newly introduced FDI norms, the revised FDI norms. So how do you view that? Will it be a big challenge for e-commerce giants like Amazon and Walmart to invest in India, or do you see loopholes there?
Yeah, I don't think it's a question of loopholes. I think clearly, goalpost changing isn't good for anyone, and we are not advocating overnight these things are done. I think upfront at the very beginning, some of these rules have to stay. I'm more talking about, what are the tax implications on a foreign company here where they have favorable, let's say, transfer pricing agreements and other companies don't. So I think that's where it becomes very difficult for an Indian company. We are definitely disadvantaged when many large companies don't have to comply towards that.
And so speaking of tax compliance, over nearly 1,000 startups received tax notices recently over the angel tax issue. The DPIIT, of course, later came up with a notification, and recently CBDT has also issued a new notification. But do you think the government has done enough to address concerns of the startups and the, has done enough in the field of angel tax?
Yeah, that's really unfortunate, and I mentioned it in my talk today. I think it's really unfortunate the way the angel tax was and the notices were given. Fundamentally, investments were being taxed in companies, which is not obviously the right way. So a lot of damage was done, and some companies were really put in a spot. And now, while they've changed the rules, I can tell you it took a lot of effort from many investors and companies together to say that, listen, this makes no sense. So I wish there is more stakeholder consultation before this happens, because a lot of smaller companies are facing the brunt and have to come back and have to oppose this.
But has the government succeeded in controlling the damage or undoing the damage through these recent notifications?
Well, they've definitely undone it, but then those 1,000 notices still have to be answered, or the 1,000 companies still have to answer those notices. So I don't think those notices get repealed automatically, sadly not.